The voice of the Twin Tiers. News Channel 25, WVTT. Depend on it.
Now our first look at weather on WVTT. We made it all the way up to 40 degrees earlier today. Just clouds outside right now, but it was a real mess out there earlier with freezing rain and snow. All of that's moved off now, but we will continue to see showers tonight. It'll stay above freezing though, at least in most areas, with a low temperature of 35 degrees overnight. And then tomorrow, warm, high of 47, but those rain showers will still be around. And even though we'll have some warm temperatures, it's just not going to be very much fun outside tomorrow.
But at least those warm temperatures can melt that ice that's already on the streets and maybe, get it off the road so we don't have such treacherous driving conditions. Yeah,
that's exactly right, Alexa. We'll have full weather details coming up here on WVTT.
Global news update on WVTT.
Rebel forces attacked a Syrian prison in Idlib, claiming to have broken out hundreds of prisoners. CNN's Tim Lister uses social media of the daring attack to tell the story.
First, they punch a hole in the prison's outer wall. Dozens of rebel fighters pour through.
Allahu Akbar.
God is greater, they shout.
Allahu Akbar.
Taking up positions behind a second wall. Heavy gunfire follows. There are casualties. One opposition source says 10 fighters were killed. Idlib's central prison is like a fortress. Human rights groups say detainees have been tortured here. Twice a regime plane roars overhead. There are anxious glances, futile shots into the sky. But the rebels are much better armed than they used to be. Al-Assad described us as rats, says one of the fighters, but we're the lions. He and his gang are the rats. We're inside their strongholds. Eventually, they penetrate the prison's defences. Inmates wave in desperation as gunfire echoes through the compound. The rebels wrench the bars from cell windows. A few minutes later, a couple of dozen prisoners are free. And then, the job of getting them to safety. Altogether, opposition activists say some 300 inmates have been freed from the prison. Criminals and political prisoners, they say. 3 rebel brigades were involved in the attack, but according to activists, the regime still controlled parts of the prison by nightfall Friday. It's the last major government-controlled site west of the city of Idlib, an area where the rebels are remorselessly gaining ground. Tim Lister, CNN, Atlanta.
January 27th, which was yesterday, is designated by the United Nations as Holocaust Remembrance Day, a memorial day of sorts for the 6 million Jews killed in Europe by the Nazis, but also a time of resolve to make sure genocide on any scale does not happen again. Sarah Cinder spoke to a survivor at the Holocaust Memorial in Jerusalem.
On this day, the world is supposed to remember to never forget. Israel's Holocaust Museum, Yad Vashem, is making sure the history of the Holocaust is never lost. The latest exhibit highlights a few of the 71,000 newly collected items from those who lived it, as well as their stories.
It was actually on my birthday, the 7th of September 1939, when Warsaw was bombed, and there were bombs for years. Even today I'm afraid of planes because bombs fell. My father was urged to immediately leave Warsaw. We got into a car with our things and we drove until the petrol ran out.
And then Ilana Landau-Carniel says at the age of 6, she, her brother, and her parents began to walk. Their journey was just beginning.
We got to Rovne. That's the border between Poland and Russia.
She remembers her father was sent to the Red Army. She, her mother, and brother were sent to a labor camp. She still has the camp layout her brother sketched for her.
It was very cold in Siberia, and we were hungry. I remember it was very cold, and we were swollen with hunger and frozen from the cold.
So many details of the journey have faded. Her parents disappeared from their lives.
I didn't understand that I was saying goodbye to my mother. I didn't think that was the end when she gave us up, put crosses on us, and left us in a Christian orphanage.
But some memories from before the war will never die.
I remember my mother's piano playing.
Ilana also has precious pieces of her family history that help her remember. Her brother's drawing of the Siberian camp and a handwritten map he gave her detailing their path to safety from Siberia to Uzbekistan to India, then Iran, and finally Israel.
We were welcomed with oranges. They were like gold.
The map now hangs in the Yad Vashem Museum. It turns out the item highlights a piece of Holocaust history shared by 900 Polish youth who all ended up in a Jewish camp in Iran. Known as one of the Tehran children, Ilana is now 80. Every year, there are fewer and fewer survivors left to tell their stories. Those who donated to this project hope these fragments of their lives will help society remember what happened to them during one of history's darkest chapters and prevent it from ever happening again. Sarah Seidner, CNN, Jerusalem.
5 years ago, rancor and bitter disagreements. Now it appears they're best of friends. Hillary Clinton and President Barack Obama sat down for a rare joint interview. CNN's Brianna Keeler reports the two spoke about their relationship and how it's resolved, how it has evolved over the last 5 years.
President Obama and outgoing Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, once bitter rivals, now allies, together for an interview with CBS's 60 Minutes.
Yeah, I consider Hillary a strong friend.
I mean, very warm, close. I think there's a sense of understanding that, sometimes doesn't even take words because we have similar views.
Rewind 5 years to their bruising primary battle.
You're likable enough.
Thank
Hillary,
you so
no
much.
doubt.
I'm here. He's not.
Okay, well, I can't tell who I'm running against sometimes.
How long did it take you to get over that?
It didn't take as long as I think people would perceive it.
It took longer for their staffs, not to mention
I think spouses take it much harder. Yeah. In a way.
No doubt.
2016 came up. The president laughed off a question about endorsing Clinton.
I was literally inaugurated 4 days ago. Right. And you're talking about elections 4 years from now.
And the secretary sidestepped.
And I don't think, either he or I can make predictions about what's going to happen tomorrow or the next year.
Clinton, who recently suffered a concussion and a blood clot and has been wearing glasses for double vision, answered a question about her health.
Oh, it's great. It's great. Now, I still have some lingering effects from falling on my head and having the blood clot, but, the doctors tell me that will all recede, and so thankfully I'm, looking forward to being at full speed.
Brianna Keeler, CNN, Washington.
Yeah, I have some lingering.
How did stocks do? Well, a real mixed bag on Wall Street. Let's take a look at the WVTT Wall Street wrap-up. It's sponsored by News Radio 96.7 WVTT. The Dow Jones Industrial Average closed down a little over 14 points, closing at almost 13,882. NASDAQ up 4.5, closing at 3154, and the S&P 500 down nearly 3, but it still stays above the 1,500 benchmark, closing at 1,518 100ths. Coming up on Twin Tiers Evening News, WVTT Sports, also a look at our community calendar, and WVTT Severe Weather Action Team forecaster Dave Mers will stop by. Our complete forecast is straight ahead. Stick around. This is News Channel 25 WVTT.